Welcome back to another episode of the Content Clubhouse podcast presented by The First Call. I'm your host, Nathan Moore, and this week got the awesome opportunity to sit down with Daniel Saloner, aka the ShortGameKing, to give us an inside look at the science behind being a golf content creator, or really any social media creator for that matter, the nuts and bolts of the algorithms, the hooks, what works, what doesn't, what is the audience going to resonate with, and adapting your content to fit that mold. So if that sounds interesting to you, keep listening, and thanks for checking out the Content Clubhouse podcast, wherever you get your podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and thefirstcall.com. Without further ado, here's ShortGameKing. Welcome back to another episode of the Content Clubhouse podcast presented by The First Call, where I'm thrilled this week to be joined by none other than the ShortGameKing himself, Daniel Saloner. Daniel, thanks so much for coming on. Honestly, I probably wouldn't even know that your actual name is Daniel Saloner if not for working with you a bit on a professional level, because like that ShortGameKing moniker is such like the brand that you've got going, and that's really kind of where I want to start with you. For those that may not be as familiar with your content, you're kind of in a lot of different lanes, if I were to kind of label it myself. You are into the hardcore instruction side. You do a lot of videos with PGA teaching pros, and you focus hard on your grip and other like very nuts and bolts golf swing things, how to get better. But you also have a lot of fun on the golf course. You do the kind of classic matchups and competitions against people, and you're not afraid to make fun of yourself like basically every golf YouTuber has to be willing to do. But if you were to describe your brand to somebody who didn't know any better, did I do a decent job of it, or would you describe yourself differently?
Yeah, no, I really just love the saying swing your swing. I'm out here to, enjoy golf. I'm 26. I have no chance of going pro. I am physically unable to play college golf anymore. So that's kind of my whole idea, is just to go out and have fun with buddies and friends. And, I've been lucky enough to work down to like a scratch. So I'm like a 0-0 handicap. And that's exactly where I want to be. I don't need to get to a +2, +3. I'm totally fine shooting anywhere from 70 to 79 and just having fun with my buddies, maybe win some cash on the course. But yeah, I'm very, very laid back on the course. I'm an extremely quick golfer, if anyone's ever played with me. And yeah, that's just kind of it. I really, really do enjoy making content and playing golf with it. So I've been lucky enough to kind of play golf for my job. So it's been a good ride.
Yeah, man. So definitely want to dive into all of that and more, but quickly take us through, your, I guess, golf content creation origin story. And I guess even prior to that, like, how'd you come to the game? You mentioned some college golf in there. You're obviously an awesome golfer. Has that always been the case? At what point did you get into this whole golf content creation thing?
Yeah, so I grew up on a golf course down in San Diego, the Fairmont Grand Del Mar. And my dad got me in lessons when I was like 10, 11, and I played for a little bit then. But then I kind of took soccer as my main sport. It was always my main sport since I was little. And, back then golf really wasn't that cool. So didn't really play a lot of golf, and soccer was my main sport. And back in college with my buddies, we used to go out just in LA and, play on a weekend. And then I would say COVID really spurted more of an interest for me. And when everything was closed, I would go to the range and just hit balls, and I became like a golf nerd with my swing. So probably when COVID was around, I was probably like an 8 to a 9 handicap. And I just was all self-taught. I would just film myself, and just tweak my swing based on feels and what I was seeing, and kind of made it my goal to, become a better golfer. And then I was like, listen, I live on a golf course. I have the access to these facilities. Why don't I just record myself and create, an Instagram account? And back then, Instagram content or golf content in itself wasn't really as flooded as it is right now. So there was kind of a lane for me. And I mainly, like, brutally honest, my main goal was to kind of make good content to get free clothes. I really, I really loved the clothing, and honestly, it was from Primo. I love Primo, and my main goal was to, make good enough content that companies would send me stuff to wear in my videos. And that really was it. I would have been completely happy with just, getting free stuff and playing golf. And then I became kind of obsessed with it. I really started to learn the ins and outs of, the algorithm on Instagram and TikTok and study what worked and what didn't work. And then that's kind of when my account started to kind of blow up and get hundreds of thousands of views. Was, it wasn't luck, if I say so. I really did a lot of studying and did Excel spreadsheets to, figure out what videos were doing well, why weren't they doing well? Was it the length? Was it the sound? Was it the hook, the first 3 seconds? So that's kind of how it all came out to be. And then obviously, like everything, it developed over time.
Yeah. So that's actually, you bring up a really good point that none of the people I've spoken to for this show yet have brought up in terms of, I guess, a audit or a self audit of like what works, what doesn't, and actually going into the granular details of trying to figure that out. You know, I would imagine there's probably a lot of creators out there who kind of just come at it from a place of like, you know what, I'm just going to make content that like I enjoy, and if it works, great. If it doesn't, whatever. But kind of take us a little bit deeper, unpack that way that you described in terms of, again, self auditing your content to really hone in on what works and what doesn't. What does that look like on a week to week, day to day basis?
Yeah, so I honestly still do it a little bit, but when I was back like just starting, I still have like in my notes on my phone, I have ideas and hooks and sentences that have worked, and just ideas for, when something certain happens. And I'm probably adding to that list like every day. Um, and it kind of just involved me going in and seeing what videos did well and then why they did well. Because at the end of the day, people always say make content that you enjoy. Sure, but at the end of the day, your video is only going to do as well as your audience thinks it's how well your audience think it is. So the numbers will never lie to you. I've done many times where I'm like, wow, this is, I chipped in or something and this video is going to do great, and it just didn't. And then you post something where you're like, oh, I just scrambled this up in 10 seconds, does millions of views. So what I would do is I would, go through my old posts and I would just say, so what I discovered is that there's something called a verbal hook, which is the first 3 seconds of your video, which is like, this is why your chipping isn't working, or come make the most absurd par with me. So that was what I studied mostly for myself, was which did well and which didn't do well, and then hammer that down. So this is the most absurd birdie you've ever done, or this was the best bogey I've ever done. Different iterations of that, and I was just obsessed. So I was doing that more than I was playing golf. At certain points where I was just studying my own content, studying what I would do, and honestly, now I've been using ChatGPT a lot, which has helped. Which I didn't really have that back in the day, where for a YouTube video or an Instagram video, I'll be like, hey, this and this happened. Can you help me with a hook? And now it's honestly done for you when you don't have to think of it. Or I'll put in like, hey, this is the hook that I've thought of. How can I make it better? So, for people listening that are trying to get into the content space, it is so much more than just kind of your golf game or what you think. It's a whole algorithm. I used to hire social media consultants to help me. Um, so it wasn't like this happened overnight. It was like a solid obsession over the algorithm and what videos did well, I guess, to get me to this point.
Yeah. I mean, definitely a very unique, almost like in the way that Bryson has this like scientific approach almost to his golf game. It sounds like you have, I guess a right-brained way of kind of going about your content, which is really really interesting. So how does that help, inform, I guess, the style of content that you produce, right? Because you know you kind of style yourself like as like the golfer with the really strong grip, like you are into the weeds a little bit in terms of instruction and the mechanics of the golf swing. But did that just come out of a natural interest in that from you as somebody who taught himself how to play the game, or did you find through your studying that, oh, people really interact with this strongly, maybe because all of us golfers are constantly trying to get better, or was it a mix of the two of those things?
Yeah. So when I first got started, I really, focused on short game tips specifically. And for the reason that you just said, I kind of wanted to like give my tips in a way that a PGA pro wouldn't give their tips, where it's like, listen, my swing is very unique. My grip is very unique. my tips might be unique, where I'm not going to tell you to get in this position there. It's almost just like, hey, lean into your left hip, or try this drill where you put your foot back. It helps keep your weight forward. So I would try to give out tips that were very, easy to digest. I would say, like, easily digestible content that when you get a lesson from a coach, and nothing's wrong with getting that, but just like, listen, if you're on your phone for 10 seconds, I want to give you a drill that can help you with chipping. um and I still do that not as much as I used to, but I've kind of, shifted more into just golf content, the 9 and 90s, so 9 holes in 90 seconds. And I would say the content's been a lot of trial and error. So, when I think of a good idea, you test it out a couple times. If it does well, it might become a staple. So that happened with my 9 and 90s, where I would record 9 holes in 90 seconds. And now you can see that that's blown up. A lot of people do that as well. And I think it's a great piece of content. Um, Another one that I tested out that did phenomenally was the "what are you going to shoot?" So I'll ask everyone what they're going to shoot before their round and then after. So I do that almost every time I play with my buddies or friends, because those just, hit. Um, what else do I really do? A lot of these like 1v1 matches have done really well. So it's just a lot of trial and error, I would say. Where, there might be something that I come up with in a week or two that does well, and then I'm like, okay, let's hammer that down. A lot of the stuff where people comment on my grip and I put the comment up and I post something, those do well. So it's a lot of trial and error, almost like A/B testing, as you will, I think is the term. And, like I said, the audience kind of picks what they want to see. And if something has done well, it means it can do well again. And if it doesn't do well, you can still try it out a couple times. But if it keeps failing, it's like, stop that content. That just isn't working. And I feel like that would be a message to aspiring creators that I tell everyone, is just consistency. Keep posting. Post 30 videos in a month, right? And then go back, study what did well, what didn't do well, take notes on it, and then do what did well and stop doing what didn't do well, right? And I keep telling people, like, even today, I still post about twice a day. I have a bunch of content and I love making the content, because if you can reach 3 million people in a month by posting once a day, you can reach 6 million people in a month by posting twice a day. Um, so that's kind of, where I'm at right now in my content, is I have a couple of these pillars that, people really love, they like, and there's going to be more to come for sure when I think of an idea. And that's kind of, I like having a brand where, when people see my name in the content, they know what they're going to get. So I hope that answered a little bit of the question.
Absolutely. But that brings up something too that I wanted to kind of pick out a little bit in terms of, you talk about doing what does work well and stop doing, what doesn't work well, which sounds relatively straightforward on the surface, but surely there's a little bit more to it than that. I just wanted to ask, is there an example maybe off the top of your head of something where you're like, oh, I really think this idea is going to work. I think it's going to be fun for me to do. And then you post it and it just fell flat. And like, how hard is that to try to reconcile what you think, what you want to do potentially with how it's performing and how it's being received?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. And I think, like, like what you want to do, but something that I've wanted to do that I've realized just is not my lane are trick shots. Um, I've tried to do, cool trick shots, and I hate making them because it takes up so much time. Your battery runs out. Funny enough, I once did a trick shot where I was chipping into ping pong cups, and that got 15 million views, like absurd. But everything else that I've done or posted has done terrible. And I hate making them. So I'm like, okay, why am I wasting my time? Um, and then, yeah, sometimes you will post something that, you might not think does well, kind of like the "what are you going to shoot?" Like, I thought that was just a cool way of doing it. And I created my own tang on it, which, putting the NFL theme song and then the violins. And now, like, whenever I play with guys and I'm like, all right, guys, we're going to do the "what are you going to shoot?" They're like, oh man, like, I got to think of my number. And then, like, on hole 13, they're like, I don't want the violins. I don't want the violins. They're scared their buddies are going to see it. And I love that. Like, some people don't even play for their score. They play for the violins and trumpets. So, coming up with stuff like that, and, um, it is tough. What else hasn't really worked? Sometimes you might have like a great hole where it's like you saved par, but then like the hook that I used for that didn't really turn out. And you're like, damn, that was a sick hole. Like, great views. I made a sandy par after almost going out of bounds. And you're like, why didn't that work? So sometimes, you just you gotta think. Like I said, I have a notes thing of like, I'm very organized and I'm a nut with it, where like, I have, sayings and hooks for kind of everything. If I like hole out, if I make a hole in one, if I make a cool birdie, if I make a par, if I make a great bogey, I have 5 to 6 hooks for each of those scenarios for when it happens in my golf game. So that's kind of
Okay.
it. I think it just comes down to just being a nut about it. Like I got obsessed over it.
Hmm. So, talk about some of these the 9 and 9 hole vlogs and the type of content you find yourself doing these days. Would you say, you're talking about writing hooks to what happened on the course? Would you say that's kind of the order of your content these days? Where like you're just going out and playing golf and you're filming it, and what happens happens, and then you're gonna see, okay, how can I turn this into content? Or how often would you say you do, I guess, the reverse, where you're going to the course with a mission to do this specific type of content?
Yeah, exactly. So, um, I'll normally like today, right? I'm gonna play 18 holes and I'm playing with some people. I'll probably every time I play, I'll do a what are you gonna shoot? Right? Because why not? Everyone loves it. You do it. You have that in your back pocket, and then I just film every shot. It's become so much to like my second nature now. And like I said, I'm a quick golfer, so it never slows up play. Where I'll film every shot of my round. So just from that, I'll have 2 9 and 90s. Um, and then within that, if I have, say a cool hole, a great birdie, a terrible bogey, a double bogey. I love making double bogeys. It does the best content. It really does. Um, I'll be like, okay, I'll go back, I'll trim all my stuff, and I'll like go through, I'll make all the shot tracers, and then I'll be like, okay, what video besides the 9 and 90s and the what are you going to shoot, like which hole could I make a cool hook, or what do I think will do well, and then I go into that and then come up with the hook. So I would just say by filming every shot, and then you do the matches as well, you film the guy that you're playing with his matches. It's almost just like let's play golf, film, and then think after. The only stuff that I would say I have like a specific thing in mind is like if I have a brand deal and I need to shoot a brand deal, I'll go to the course and shoot brand stuff. Um, but like now it's almost just like, hey, when we get to the course, let's do what are you going to shoot? Film every hole. You got your 9 and 90s, you got your hole vlogs. If you have a really cool chip right within one of those holes, or like a great shot that you stick it to like 3 feet, that could be its own separate video. But yeah, it's gotten to the point where like I'm like, I make a par, a sick par, a great save, and I'm like, yeah, that'll be a cool hole vlog. I already came up with the hook in my head. Or like I said, people love the bad holes. So I'll make a double from like the middle of the fairway, and I'm like, yep, that's gonna do numbers. A triple, that's gonna do numbers, right? And I think that just brings out the relatable aspect where like, I'm a scratch golfer where I can go shoot 34 or 42, and people will like either one. People actually prefer the worst scores because it's more relatable. So people always be like, "Are you gonna post that?" And I'm like, "Hell yeah, I'm gonna post it. That's gonna do better numbers." People love seeing that you're kind of human. There's obviously the trolls and the keyboard warriors that'll be like, "Told you you're not scratch, like you suck," but then they're quiet when you post a 34, 35. So long story short, I just go play, film every shot, and then I make the content.
So how has that changed the way that you enjoy the game of golf? Because it's clearly become, uh, a job in many ways, right? If you're filming every shot that you do, and it sounds like you've got it down to a science of like it's as less intrusive as it could possibly be. But has that changed the way that you enjoy playing around a golf?
Yeah, the only thing that I would say kind of changes is, which I'm like trying to work on now, are these keyboard warriors. Like when I like have a bad hole, or like I finish the 9 holes and I know I didn't play well, like I'm always thinking about like what people are gonna say. Like, oh, what's that person gonna comment when I post this? Which I've been trying to like really get out of my head. Like just play golf, just enjoy. You'll post it after. And it's funny because like that's how like when I film with people now, that's how they think too. They're like, "Oh no, people are going to hate on me." And it's just like that's the world we've come to, where like people are so nasty on social media. But I've got it down so quickly that like people don't even see my camera. I have my tripod, I place it down, I get my angle, and then it's just let's play. I go through, I put it down, I push play, and then I go through my routine. It doesn't really phase me anymore at all. Um, I would say like sometimes I need to find the right angle, with lighting and sun. So like if the sun is this way, I gotta, get the putt behind the hole. Where like maybe that takes an extra second. But I've timed myself from the minute I push play from my camera, it takes me 7 seconds to hit the golf ball. Yeah, so the minute I push play and do my routine and everything, it's 7 seconds till ball in air. So I'm not taking up any time. But Yeah, it's almost like nice that it's become second nature. Um, and yeah, sometimes I'll go out and not even film and just play. Um, but I don't mind it at all because you never know what's going to happen. That's what I tell people. Like I can put on a par three and film everyone, and someone gets a hole in one, right? Whoever gets that hole in one has that video for the rest of their life. Um, or if I film a hole out from 195, like I was just in Cabo and I was filming every shot and I almost had an albatross. I had to tap an eagle, so like it has its pros, it has its cons, but like having that video or that like live reaction would just be amazing to just have. Not even for social media, but just for your phone. So it's um it's a blessing and a curse for sure. But I think there's more blessings to it as long as you don't obsess over it, which I obsess post production, but in the moment, put my camera down, push play, let's have some fun.
Well, cool. Before I get you out of here, want to touch on something else. You talk about it being a blessing and a curse. As somebody whose content is so informed by the public reaction to that obviously opens doors to you're going to have a lot of positive reactions, but everybody knows the internet these days. You're probably going to have a lot more negative reactions to what you're posting. How do you handle that, and how do you, I guess, take constructive criticism out of it? Because surely there is some, but yeah, I just don't know. I don't think most of us really get how much heat you guys are catching, and how many of these comments you actually read, or do you read them?
Yeah, I don't really read them anymore. Especially on TikTok. I would say TikTok is the much worse platform for comments because a lot of people don't actually have like profiles where like, everyone has their own Instagram with their profile and their bio. TikTok, there's a ton of like user 747s and all that stuff. Um, I would say two things. You got to have thick skin. You really do. And second, you got to like look at the funny thing of it. Um, Especially in golf, like everyone we call them keyboard warriors or armchair critics. 99% of these people commenting will never beat me in golf. Maybe, okay, I'll probably lower that. Maybe like 97%. Um, because a lot of these people that are commenting are just, they're the same commenting about like pros being like, "Oh, how did you miss that?" Right? Um, and you got to look at it as a positive. So what I'll do is I'll take their comments, put on my screen, and embarrass them almost, being like, "Oh, you're not scratch," and I don't care. You can care like you're taking a snippet. I'll just like do a video of my gin. Like, guys, I post every single one of my scores. This is my gin. And it's evolved where I have now started a series called All Talk on YouTube, which I have enjoyed nothing more than doing, where if you have something to say and you are a keyboard warrior armchair critic, come on, come down. We'll play an 18-hole match play, and we'll test it. We'll see if you're all talk almost, where, people can hide behind screens, say whatever they want. And then when they come into a camera, right, people don't understand that the camera will add a couple shots. They get scared. They get really scared. And we've done about like 7 of these matches so far. And it's the most fun that I'm having because I'm a very competitive person. And it's funny, a lot of these guys will chirp so much online and then they'll come and meet me and try to play, and they're also lovey-dovey, and I'm like, what are you doing? Like, for this next 18 holes, like, I don't like you. Like, you just talked you just talked trash to me online behind a camera without a username or anything, and you expect to like come here and me like, hey, like, no, we're going to war. Like, I don't like you. I might like you after, but like I always say, like, it takes someone so like sad and immature to like talk bad about someone who they've never met before. And I'm sure everyone on social media will tell you it's not just the golf space. It's like people are just so nasty on social media. And, we're in the golf space. So, like, sure, someone could be like, your grip sucks. Like, you're not scratch. Like, people make fun of the joggers. Are those your sister's pants? Like, so like I don't care anymore. I've now harnessed that to like make content out of it, or like just like, hey, come and play me. If you can beat me, you can keep talking. But if you don't, like, oh, you're not the short game king. Okay, I'll go get up and down 5 times. Like, so like I've really, really, really enjoyed making this series, and that's like how I've like tried to shut up the haters, essentially.
Yeah, that's really funny, and especially to hear how how different people are in person versus online. I think
So
it's a really
different.
creative way of kind of approaching that. Well, again, thank you so much, Daniel, for coming on. You can find him at ShortGameKing on wherever you consume your content: Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, what have you. Before you go, what's something your viewers should be excited about coming up? You talked about your YouTube series. Any other exciting things on the horizon for your channels?
Um, just kind of traveling. We got a couple nice, trips planned where the better courses that I play, the better content I can put out. Um, but I'm really, really excited about this all talk. So, for the listeners, I think it's a different, YouTube golf has become so great and I love it. I consume it myself. And it's only going up, I think. And I feel like I'm trying to carve out a niche that I think people will enjoy where it's just 1v1 match play, competitive, chirping, a lot on the line, like if you're that type of guy and you like just two guys going at it, just go watch All Talk. I'm very excited about it. It's very like, DOD King-esque for the people who like him. It's not as you know, Carter has his own way. Um, but it's a very, very good niche that I'm hoping to carve out in the YouTube golf space where let's tango, like if you're All Talk, come on down. Let's tango.
I love it. I love it. Appreciate it, my guy, and good luck with
Yeah, of
everything.
course. Thank you, my man. Great to meet you.